and welcome to the Martin Shaw King Trust, funded by United Family and Friends Project, looking at Senism, which is the development of a peer support advocate model, mainly for people of an African heritage, but it's effective for people who are with autism or learning disability in relation to the Mental Health Use of Forces Act. It's based on research, asking people about their experiences and needs, and building a project that gives people a better understanding of their rights under the Mental Health Act, the Criminal Justice Act, and also the Mental Health Use of Forces Act.
The Martin Shaw King Trust is a community social justice project with a history of supporting the legal, statutory and mental health rights of black communities in relation to the educational, mental health and criminal justice systems, in relation to misdiagnosis, overrepresentation and systematic injustice. It is a community-based social justice model based on the liberation and um, in, in sorry.
As mentioned by the main researcher, Omi Mark King, this is developed through the Martin Shaw King Trust and the loss and death of Martin Shaw. The work has been based upon looking at race equality in sport and mental health and education. What the project aims to do is to extend that project idea into mental health systems approach by really focusing on the life and death of Seni and what that death actually meant for ensuring we have better equality systems and processes for all communities, but specifically for those that are mostly overrepresented in our current mental health system. So we would like to thank United Family and Friends for the history of challenging injustice in our criminal justice mental health systems in England and in the global world. We celebrate the understanding about how we understand racism and mental health, and the need to co-design through meaningful co-production what peer support could be from a Sene's law perspective. And this great opportunity is offered by the implementation of the Mental Health Use of Forces Act, which we'll actually talk about in more detail throughout the videos. The aim of the training, which is available for anybody who's interested in looking at injustice in mental health work and in the criminal justice system, is that how do we develop a peer support that's slightly different from traditional models? It's based upon an Afrocentric peer support framework, which is based on the lived experience of racialized communities, black communities. But what we want to ensure in this training that professionals, carers, medical staff are aware of the skills of being an advocate when they are representing people from the African community. It's to ensure that African communities understand equality of access, equities in our system, and better outcomes in terms of their life aspirations. It's important to remember that this video was developed during the loss of very close friends that we've worked with in actually supporting the framework. Pat King, who was a social worker, Diane Clark, who was a tremendously insightful educationist, and he's the wife of Simon Clark, who's made a major contribution to this work. To remember Seni and also to remember Sean. We love you and we will never ever forget you. We recognize in developing this training framework that the most important thing is co-production. How do we then work more effectively across professional lines, across the community, carers, and race lines as well? And to that, we actually acknowledge the important contribution from the Mental Health Use of Forces Act and their definition of co-production, which is the word parity, equality, and recognizing different voices when we are working to ensure people are prevented from the worst experiences in our institutional settings. It's really important to actually understand equality and equity and addressing racism that we look at two things: the historical past, in which unfortunately slavery led to the overwhelming use of restrictions of black communities. And those practices were actually carried out and are still carried out on our wards and our mental health systems that have fatally led to the loss of life. To the most serious point that we will know that if you are black, you're 11 times more likely to be given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, you're more likely to be compulsorily admitted, and you're more likely to be placed in something called a community treatment order, which means the group most vulnerable to restraint and discrimination and race inequality are communities of African Caribbean. This is why this training project is crucial. We think it's important to remember that changes in peer support must be based on an understanding of the legacy of an illness called depomania. This was an illness in which black people during slavery were actually brought back if they ran away, where they were abused, tortured, and died. And these are the sort of atrocities that continue to occur inside of our mental health system. The pictures are a number of people who have had an experience of being restrained and unfortunately have lost their lives. Stephen Lawrence, Christopher Clunas, Dalen Atkinson, Sean Riggs. And more globally, we remember the history of Black Lives Matter. This should motivate us to believe change is necessary. So to begin to empathise with loss and death and restraint, Seni's law is very, very important. Bethlem Hospital is where this young person lost his wife. His mother, of a proud young person to MAs, with a grandmother that she contributed greatly towards his life. But what's to remember is the strength of Ajibola, as she wrote a paper with Marcia Riggs, both who have lost people fatally in the mental health system and now challenge the purpose of mental health and black lives through a paper based on black men wanted for restraint and research. The paper is now available for you to read to give you a more of appreciation of why this peer support model is crucial. So the first very important part of this training of a new peer support model and a new model called Senism, which is an Afrocentric male perspective and female perspective to mental health, is to understand the Mental Health Use of Forces Act as a statutory legislation within mental health units. The Act, which is attached in the last section, gives you a breakdown of the definition, with key responsible people, the policies on the Use of Forces Act, and most importantly, the training that staff need to have that advocates will challenge if they are not trained to carry out restraints. And also, the role of the police of coming into mental health units. We hope this training can be extended to what happens into schools, to homes, to prisons and to police stations. So the purpose of understanding the Mental Health Use of Forces Act 2018 was to begin to understand that the advocate, or what we want it to be based upon the Senism policy, is ensuring that we are safe, that in relation to Section 5 that we have a care plan that responds to our needs, and also in line with the Mental Health Reform Bill 2005, for people of an African heritage are given choice, autonomy, and also we always look at something called the least restrictive alternatives. Again, we'll see in the next section the types of theories that we need to use to understand how US-centric approach to mental health fails in its response and responsibility to make the Black experience safe. So this project is for all professionals across the colour line to improve their cultural perspective and understanding of the experiences of African Caribbean. So we use theorists across gender, across sexuality, Angela Davis, Dr. Wesley Kress, as two major people that give us an understanding of the political issues of race and also some of the clinical issues. We also use Fanon, the way people are forced to wear masks that denies their cultural identity. This project is often asking you to look at the challenges to understand how we can prove culturally appropriate advocacy within a framework called Seni's peer law support. So it often meant that peer support training, as being a constant theme, is for everybody, white, black, whatever your racialized categorization. It's for professionals, carers and staff. We are so happy that this project is now being supported by the Lancet Psychiatry and the editor Joan Marsh. And our second training session will be based upon peer support training to ensure any research documents actually does justice to the lived experience of Black communities. This project will be aligned to the peer support training for Seni's law and will go out across the global world. So I celebrate this co-production agenda and also the possibilities that we can change lives across the world. So the pedagogy, the way we want people to learn in this training, is based upon something called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, a book written by Ferreira, who basically says that this training is based upon the empowerment and liberation. It's based upon you to use this to supplement other research that you're doing, to develop your cultural competency, but more importantly, we're looking at how do we empower disenfranchised Black communities in our mental health settings? How do we look at dismantling whiteness as a superior way of actually addressing the experiences of a diverse community? And how do we get back to the individual quality which was taken away in relation to Seni's law?
We've got to work so hard if we want to work free. We've got to find a plan we can all agree. We have to question our ways and learn to see the disguise that we wear without knowing in front of our eyes. We've got to keep affirming a willingness to act. We must not deviate, got to stay on track. We have to press on while we can. Keep walking down the road, move to a higher ground as the new day grows. We will question all that we know so that we can find a way to discover what is hidden just below the lies of yesterday. to keep moving, to help each other along. We'll join hands, we'll sing a righteous song to a future built on trust and shared respect as we overcome the hatred that we reject. Keep moving, just keep moving, keep moving, just keep moving, keep moving, just keep moving. To sing a righteous song. To a future built on trust and shared respect as we overcome the hatred that we reject. As we overcome the hatred that we reject. As we overcome the hatred that we reject.
So in this training, before we even engage in becoming an advocate for African Caribbean communities, from school to hospital to prisons to discharge, one of the things that we need to look at is reflective challenges to understand the implicit bias. That was the assumptions that we may make about people. If you look at the doll and understand that, you can actually say we make decisions in the first 5 seconds. So we need to understand and apply the principles of equality. We need to understand lived experience and the racialized impact of people who are in mental health and have been denied their rights. So hopefully the video will actually give an understanding of some of the decisions we make as early as 5, 6 years, and what do we need to do to change that, particularly if we're outside of those cultural experiences.
I'm here with Trevor King.
This video is based on the research we carried out and some of the interviews that gave us an idea about
here with Professor
how peer
Tim
review
Kendall.
is needed at different levels and different experiences.
What is your cultural racial background?
I'm white British. I think that's
okay. In terms of my racial background, I'm of dual heritage in terms of British, white British, and African, West African, that's Sierra Leonean.
White other, I would always list down. My dad's from Algeria, and my mum's half German, half Croatian.
it's a British Caribbean.
Not British.
Okay. What is good mental health to you?
Having a well-rounded life, where you can recognise poor mental health, do something about it, access services or support within your own networks.
Right.
Good mental health for me is waking up in the morning and looking forward to the day, being able to plan things without worry that they may not happen, and to really be able to look forward to a future and feeling happy or content.
It's having a family, it's having your friends accessible to you, it's being able to do a job that you feel reasonably proud of doing. It's being able to have enough money and enough things to do, leisure and so on. Yeah, all of those things are the things that make anyone's life okay.
Are there any cultural factors that have affected your mental health?
I'll say being black, obviously, it's a bit difficult in terms of opportunities and just generally being treated like anybody else. But yeah.
To be honest, it's a hard question to answer, because I do think that there would be subconscious effects, of course, but consciously, maybe because it's all I know, I can't think of anything. And I guess at the same time, growing up in London, in a very multicultural area, and I didn't feel like an outcast, or I didn't have any negative mental health issues because of my cultural background. So,
and sometimes there need to be a mantra person as a black man living in London. Also, the kind of acceptance of cannabis within my culture, I think, can be detrimental to mental health. The pressure on people to smoke cannabis, the people dismissing it as something that's normal amongst black people. I think, you know, that can affect people's mental health. Also, racism as well can affect my mental health as well. You know, it can bring on paranoia. You know, you don't believe people are talking about you, but it's racism.
What support do you need to maintain your mental health?
I think there's external support in terms of the support that I get from friends and family, being able to share how I feel, or if I'm down, it can be helpful for me to have counselling. I find that quite helpful. But also other things that's quite important are the things that I can do for myself. So thinking about what I'm eating, exercising, making sure that I get outside, get fresh air and daylight.
Okay, what I think we all need is that we need space and time to deal with the difficulties that we face. Most mental health problems are triggered by facing one difficulty or another. So traumas or bad things happening or losses or whatever. And for that to not become a major mental health issue, you need the right kind of supports from family, from friends, and sometimes from professionals who might be able to come in and support you.
If you had to go to hospital, in some case, what for your mental health, what support would you need?
I guess patience and understanding, I think very important. I guess if I was in hospital, maybe just the time, you know, spending time away, spending time by myself, that could be beneficial as well.
Probably just someone by my side, just someone that'll be by my side daily, or someone I can check in with daily that will not be biased and just someone just consultant, to be honest.
Support what I would need. I guess if I had to go to hospital for my mental health, I'd probably be in crisis. I'd look at things that can avoid that crisis in the future. I need some support to understand why I needed to go to hospital, what can prevent me from going in the future, and also effective discharge plans so that I do not return. So some support when I'm discharged.
Peer support is a way of getting one-on-one support. What would you need from a peer support worker?
I'm not sure, because I haven't been in that situation.
Yeah.
I work with peer support workers. The really big advantage about a peer support worker is that a peer support worker can gain a trusting relationship with someone because they share having had experiences not just of mental health problems, but also of mental health services. So when I work with people who are peer support workers, they make the main relationship, and I'm brought in by them if I'm needed.
With someone that's patient and someone that just generally wants the best for me.
understanding, empathy, punctuality, reliability, accessibility, and for them to be knowledgeable as well.
Okay.
From a peer support worker, I would want someone who themselves has experienced mental health challenges. I would want that person not necessarily to be telling me what I should be doing, but talking to me about how they managed in certain situations, help me to feel that I suppose it's that shared support, that if I was with a peer support worker, that they are helping to validate my experiences, validating how I feel, but also providing me with that support in moving forward and enabling me to see that there is a future and that this moment in time is a moment in time and that things can improve.
And last question is, how would you like them to support your cultural needs?
I think it's really important that they understand the experiences that I've had as a woman, first, as a woman, as a black woman, that they can relate to the impact of kind of like all the different oppressions that happen, that have an impact on my mental health. So whether it's about racism, sexism, maybe feeling marginalised in society at times. So those things are quite important that they...
Just generally just have an understanding of, I guess, of at least a little understanding of how it is for me as a black person, I guess, and I guess if you're an Asian person, same. Be someone that's open generally.
Myself, I don't think that is that important for that person to be from the same cultural background as me. But I think an understanding of my culture would definitely be beneficial. So yeah, as long as they understand.
And to understand some of the issues I'm facing as a cultural person, and to have some plans and interventions that can support me to support me with my cultural needs. Just someone who's genuinely understanding of my culture. Sometimes that racism that we face out there, they need to try harder, and someone to be
Professional, how do you feel other cultures need to be helped within the mental health system with peer support, and which ways can we improve it?
I think that this absolutely can't be done by people like me saying this is what's needed.
Yeah.
I think what we would need to do from the start would be to talk to those people from other cultural backgrounds and find out what they need to make mental health services a safe place to be.
From these videos and the other research that we've done, which will be in the closing slide, we will give you a better understanding of when people are stopped under a 136, which is the police stopping people in the community, the fact that you have rights, legal rights, to challenge the 136. We'll look at people who are being admitted to hospital under Section 2, which is a 28-day admission, or Section 3, a treatment order, and the rights you have to actually go to a tribunal. We'll actually look at, in the last slide, which are a series of other YouTube videos, about how do you then understand your rights under the Mental Capacity Act, stop and search, but more importantly, your rights under Section 17A, which is actually for leave and also for community treatment order. But what's challenging is that this is underpinned by really understanding the Mental Health Use of Forces Act, the role of care planning and the police, which you will see in the last slide. So anybody of an Afro-Caribbean heritage should understand their right to an advocate. The advocate can come under the Mental Health Act, the Mental Health Use of Forces Act, or the Mental Capacity Act. But what we have done, which you'll see in the last slide, is offer 3 modules to improve people within the community to become our own community advocates and to support people at times when their mental health is soon to be racialized, which means using diagnosis to make understandings that are not culturally relevant. We've talked about the importance of care planning within the system and how you as an advocate should ensure that people do have a care plan. And more importantly, as you'll see in this last slide, the right to a tribunal, which is like a court within the hospital where you can challenge decisions made about your mental health and also your safety under the Mental Health Use of Forces Act. So in this last few slides, it gives you an opportunity to develop Ferreira's approach to empowerment through learning. Module 1 will just give you an understanding in more detail of what the Mental Health Use of Forces Act is about. You will see some of the training that we've offered and how we work with communities to understand it and apply it. Module 2 then actually gives you an idea about how do you then apply the training in real life situations. But at this context, this is mostly about the ward. What we will develop is training about the community, in the police, and wider social settings. Lastly, section 3, it's really more about what do we do to challenge and change the system so it's more culturally relevant to experiences. We think it's important in these YouTubes that you begin to understand the Mental Health Act, the Mental Health Use of Forces Act as well. And lastly, something that's very important for all of us is called the Patient and Carer Race Equality Framework, which should be used as a mandatory tool for more mental health units to ensure that there is equality for the Blackest experience in mental health care. So we'd just like to thank not only the motivation of Ajibola Lewis, her daughter Kemi, and the whole Lewis family, but some of the kind support we've received from people in high profile positions to develop this very, very draft of Seni's Law peer support. Professor Tim Kendall, who was recently the clinical lead for the National Service, is now setting up community programs for mental health. Largely, Dr. Smith, who historically is the first person of a Nigerian heritage to be the president of the Royal College of Psychiatry. And also we'd like to thank everybody at United Family and Friends that have offered funding for us to support this first stage of a peer review model. Lastly, I'd just like to end and just tell you this work is based upon Ajibola's famous cultural advocate, James Baldwin, and the notion of I'm not Negro, which is really a symbolism that we are not owned, we are not controlled, and we have the ability to develop our own systems and processes. And so the future work after this funding is to actually extend the 3 models that you would see in the last slide, to actually then develop more the peer advocate model in training stages, and also then to develop a peer review model, which is already being written and will be going in circulations globally early next year. The last thing we think is crucial, and it's an idea from Ajibola Lewis, is that we have a Seni's Law Research and Educational Foundation, which we're looking to develop through the Mental Health Foundation.